Okay. So in the last session, we started talking about the business logics. So we have already talked about the formula. So that's one way to execute business logic. So if you have clearly defined logic and you want the values to be automatically calculated based on your logics, you can use a formula field. All right. Uh, but one thing that we have to keep in mind when we are using formula field, it's going to be applicable on all the records, right? So you cannot have exceptions there, right? So formula field is a read-only field, and you won't have an option to edit the values and all, right? So if there are 10,000 records, the same formula is going to be applicable on all 10,000 records. Okay, so that is the thing. Now, the next business logic that we are going to talk about is validation loop. Okay, how the validation rules will be executed. Okay, so what is validation rule? Validation rule is basically a rule criteria that you can define to validate the data before it gets into the database server. All right. So we have the option of defining the rule criteria, which can get executed before it gets into the database server. All right. So sometimes you need to validate the data. All right. Kind of. Let's say amount of the opportunity cannot be less than 20,000 or it cannot be more than 50,000. All right. So in that case, we can use validation rule. All right. So how does validation rule work? So when a record is being inserted, it works on insert and update. So when a record is being inserted or updated, it will basically check the values and if that value is not allowed, it would throw the error message. All right. So it's pretty simple to define a validation rule. In a validation rule, there are three things that you have to define. One is the rule criteria. One is the rule criteria. One is the error message. And one is the error location. Okay. Instead of rule criteria, let me call it error criteria. That will be more appropriate. Okay. So error criteria, error message, error location. Okay. Now, so error criteria is what criteria should throw an error, what criteria should not be allowed, what is the error message that you want to throw, and where do you want to display the error message. Error location is whether you want to display the error message on the top of the page or you want to display it beside some field. So that's the error location. Fine. That's all we have to define in a validation rule. Okay. So let's go ahead and create a validation rule and then we'll get started with this part. Okay. Fine. So I'll log in into it. Pawan, can you please quickly share the login ID password? User ID and password. Pawan, you there? Not sure. Okay. I think he's not here. So can anyone else share the login ID password? Just give me the user ID password of your developer or anyone can give it. Nandini, I will need the verification code. I think you have received it in your phone. Please share the verification code. Okay, I'll use another login ID. Just once, can you type in the password also? I think she doesn't have her phone, so I'll use another login ID. Okay, you must have received a verification code in your email. Please take the verification code and give it to me. Okay, yep, so here we are. So we are logged in into this. What we're going to do is we will create the validation rule here. All right, so let me take a small scenario. I want to create a validation rule that if opportunity amount is less than 10,000, I want to throw an error. Right, so that's what my validation rule is about. All right, so anytime a user is trying to create a new opportunity or update an opportunity to an amount which is less than 10,000, there should be a validation error. Okay, that's what we want. Okay, so let's go ahead and create it. So how do you create the validation rule? To create the validation rule, all that you need to do is you just need to go to this thing. That particular object on which you want to create the validation rule. So in this case, we want to create a validation rule on the opportunity. So you can just go to the opportunities, set up customize opportunities. Under that, you will have validation rule. We have this validation rule option available under each object. Right? So if you are trying to create something under accounts, then you should go to accounts and then validation rule. All right, that is. So I'm trying to create a validation rule on opportunities. I can go to opportunities, then go to validation rules. Click on new, create a new rule here. Right, so I put opportunity validation here. It is active, and three things that I told you we have to define. First is the error condition, error message, and error location. Three things I told you we have to define. Right? So what is the error condition? Error condition is amount less than 10,000. So you can insert the field amount field from here. Amount less than 10,000. Right, so you just have to write the error condition. What condition should throw error? You don't have to write any if and all that stuff. Right? You just have to write the error condition. So what criteria is going to throw an error? Amount less than 10,000 should throw error. If you want, you can do a syntax check just to understand if your expression is correct. Yeah, it's correct. What is the error message? That's done. Okay. What is the location for your error message? Do you want to display it on the top of the page, or you want to display it beside a particular field? Top of the page, the error message will be displayed on the top. If you choose a field, You can select whichever field you want to display the error message with, amount or whatever field. Okay, let me just choose top of the page and click on save. Okay, if you want your validation rule to work, then you can make it active. Okay, at any point of time you don't want this to work, you should go and make it inactive and just remove this, uncheck this checkbox. Right now, sometimes there can be a scenario that you don't want the validation rule to work for some duration. You just want to turn it off for some time, right? So you can just uncheck this checkbox to deactivate the validation rule temporarily. Okay, so let me activate this, save this. Let's go and see if the validation rule is working. So what are we gonna do? We will just go to Salesforce and then we'll go to opportunities and we're gonna create a new one. See, amount cannot be less than 10,000. Right, so that's how simple it is to define the validation rule. Okay, all right. So validation rule is basically the rule criteria. Okay, so in case you have a requirement where you do not want certain values to be allowed for some of the object or records, then you can define validation rule to restrict those entries, right? Okay, so we have seen two logics. One is formula. Formula can auto calculate the value. Validation rule will basically restrict certain values. Now the third logic which we're going to discuss about is workflow rule. Okay, now what is the workflow rule? Workflow rule will basically let you automate the stuff. It will allow you to automate some actions. All right. So workflow rule is used for, as the name says, workflow. So it is basically used for defining the flow of action. All right, and you can automate that flow. Okay, so now how does that work? So here, to define a workflow rule, you need to first of all understand what all actions it can perform. When I say it can automate actions, so let's quickly understand what all actions it can perform. Okay, so the actions it can perform are it can do a field update, it can send an email, it can do a field update, it can assign a task to a user, and it can send an outbound message. Okay, so it can send email, field update, assign a task, send an outbound message. There are 4 types of actions that your workflow rule can do, right? And you can update or you can automate any of these actions. Automate as in you can define a criteria, and on that criteria, when that criteria is met, automatically the action will be performed. Right. So let me give you a small scenario. What I'm going to do here is every time there is a new opportunity with amount greater than 50K, send an email to opportunity owner. Okay, so let's say that's the requirement. Every time there is an opportunity which has got an amount more than 50,000, you want to send an email to the owner. just asking him to take special care of that particular opportunity or something like that. All right. Now, what will you do there? You will uh, use the workflow rule. So one is, you can definitely do this task manually. Every time a new opportunity is created, you can go and send an email manually. But workflow rule will allow you to automate this. So email can be sent automatically based on the criteria. So criteria can be defined. Every time there's an opportunity which is created with that particular amount, an email will be sent to the owner. All right. Okay. So to define a workflow rule, what we have to do, what we have to do, um, you know, before we actually start creating the workflow rule in Salesforce, we need to plan the workflow rule. Okay, so a bit of initial planning needs to be done. Okay, so whatever requirement you have, you should ideally try to break your requirement into smaller steps and understand what exactly you're going to define. Right. So at least for the initial few months when you are creating the workflow rules, you can actually try breaking your requirement into smaller parts and understand what exactly you're going to define in the workflow rule before getting into the workflow. All right. Okay. So what exactly we need to do? So let's understand this. You have to decide on which object the rule needs to be created. On which object you're going to create the rule. That's the first thing that needs to be decided. What is your criteria? Which is rule criteria. What is your evaluation criteria? Means when do you want the rule to be evaluated, and then what action you want to perform. So whatever requirement you have, you try to break that requirement into these small pieces of information. And if you have answer to all these things, defining workflow rule in Salesforce is going to be very simple for you. All right. So before getting into Salesforce, you should ideally try and answer this. In action, again, there are two types of actions. One is immediate action. One is time dependent action. Okay. So we have immediate action and then we have time dependent action. So two types of actions we have. So you can actually define the action based on your requirement. So if you want to perform the action immediately, use immediate action. If you want to delay that action by some time, then you can use the time dependent action. All right. Okay. So before you start creating a workflow rule, this is what you have to do. You have to break your requirement into these small steps, and then you can go and create this on Salesforce. All right. So let's take this requirement and we'll try to break this into this. Okay. Which object are we talking about here? I want you guys to help me in this. Which object are we talking about? This is my requirement. Read this requirement and help me answer these questions. So which object are we talking about? We're talking about opportunity. That's good. What is the rule criteria? The rule criteria is amount less than amount, greater than 50. That's my rule criteria. What is the evaluation criteria? Evaluation criteria is when do you want this rule to be evaluated? Okay. So evaluation criteria is basically when do you want the rule to be evaluated. So when do I want the rule to be evaluated? It should be evaluated on a new opportunity, which means new opportunity is created. Okay, so every time there's a new opportunity being created, I want this rule to be evaluated. All right. We also have an option of evaluating the rule on updates. Right, but here we are specific about new opportunity, so it is just going to be an insert or a create record, right? Okay, what is the action that I want to do? I want to send an email. Now, do you want to send the email immediately or time dependent? That's up to you. Let me say immediate action. That's it. So I've broken my requirement. Now it is going to be simple for me to go ahead and create the workflow for this. Okay, so let's go ahead and create it in Salesforce. All that you need to do is you just need to go to setup. Okay, go to the workflow rules. In the setup quick find box, you can search for workflow. You'll find workflow rules, and in this you can click on continue here. Define a new rule. See, the first question, which object? Yeah, so we have to choose the object. You already have answered to those questions. Now it's going to be very simple for you. Just give it a name. Rule 1. When do you want the rule to be evaluated? Evaluation criteria is only when the record is created. Right? We have got two more options: created and every time it's edited, and created and anytime it's edited to subsequently meet criteria. So we have got three options. I just want this to be evaluated when the record is being created. Okay. Okay. Now, what is the rule criteria? Amount greater than 50,000. Find that. Okay. Now we are done with defining the rule criteria, evaluation criteria. We have to define the actions. So step number 3 is specify workflow actions. So in the action, as I told you, there are two options. You have immediate actions and you have time dependent actions. So any immediate actions can be defined here. Any time dependent actions can be defined here. Okay. The time dependent, first of all, before you define the time dependent action, you have to add the time trigger. When do you want that action to happen? Let's say you want your action to be performed 6 hours from that rule trigger. So you just need to add the time trigger. 6 hours after the rule trigger. Okay, so you can actually define the time trigger, and then under the time trigger you can define the time dependent workflow actions. So see, there's a rule trigger 6 hours after the there's a time dependent workflow action which can be defined under this rule trigger 6 hours from the rule trigger date. Right. You can add another time trigger if you want. Okay. Immediate actions should be defined here. Alright, so let me define an immediate action. You want to do an email alert, so just go to new email alert. You can pick an email template. Okay, so there are some sample email templates which are available. You can pick email template from here. If you want, you can also create your own email template. In setup, there is this option of communication templates, and here you can go and create your email templates. Alright. So for now, I'll just pick a sample email template. Okay. Who's going to be the recipient of the email? Who's going to receive the email? Owners. Opportunity owner should receive the email, right? So you have several options. You can send it to the user, you can send it based on a role, you can send it to the account owner. There are several options which are available, and you want to send it to the owner. Fine. So this email will be sent to the owner every time there's an opportunity which is created and it has got an amount more than 50,000. You also have an option of copying up to 5 email addresses on this email. You can CC those people, so you can add up to 5 email addresses here. Will be copied on this email. All right, and then click on save. Fine. So your workflow rule is done. Once you're done with defining the actions, your workflow rule is ready, and you just have to activate this. Like validation rule need to be activated. Here you have to click on this button to activate this. Okay, so once you're done with defining the workflow rule, all that you need to do is activate the workflow rule. That's it. Till the time you do not activate, it's not gonna work. Fine. So that's how the workflow rule will work, and that's how it is defined. Okay. And if I activate this every time an opportunity is created, which is an amount more than 50,000, an email will be sent to the owner of the opportunity. Right. First time when you try to activate a workflow rule on your org, it will ask you for a default workflow user. Okay, you have to just choose a user with system admin privileges. Now, what is this default workflow user? This is the user who will be uh, informed in case there's a problem with the workflow rule, right? So this is just a one-time thing. That's something which you have to do on your own. Okay, so that's the thing. Now this workflow rule has been defined and it is active. That's fine. If I create an opportunity and I put an amount more than 50,000, owner of the opportunity will receive an email. Make sense? So this way you can actually automate some action and you can uh, save a bit of time for your team, right? Reduce the time which is required for performing those actions manually. We can automate and we can actually save time for the team, right? Okay. So that's how the workflow rule is defined. Now the next thing that we're going to talk about is an approval process. All right. So approval process. What is an approval process? Approval process is basically an option to automate the entire process of approving the data. All right. So approval process is the option of automating the entire approval procedure. So what is this approval thing? Sometimes you have data in the system which needs approval from let's say manager or someone, right? There is data which requires approval, right? Salesforce allows you to automate this entire approval process. Okay. So usually what happens? There's this data, and then you need the data to be approved by someone, and then there are certain things that you need to do if the record is approved, and if it is not approved, we will need to do something else and all that stuff, right? Salesforce gives us the option of automating this entire process of approval. Okay, so let's understand how it works. So to define an approval process, again, we'll have to use the same kind of a logic. We'll have our approval process requirement, and you will have to break your requirement into smaller steps. Okay, the same way we did it for workflow rule, we are going to understand the approval process and break the requirement into smaller steps, right? Then approval process, it's pretty similar to a workflow rule. It's also automating action, but the difference in a workflow and approval process is in workflow there was a criteria and then there was an action, right? In approval process there are stages. You have actions defined for each stage, because approval process is going to go through several stages, right? The record will be submitted for approval, then there is a possibility that it gets rejected, then there's a possibility it gets approved. So you have to define actions for each stage. What action you will perform when the record is submitted for approval? What action you want to perform if the record is rejected? What action you want to perform if the record is approved, right? So for each stage we will have the uh, actions defined. All right. Okay. So what are we going to do here? We'll define the process for it. Before that, we'll have to just break it into smaller steps. So here also, first thing that you have to understand is for which object you are going to define the approval process. What is your criteria, entry criteria for the records which require approval? One more thing, who is the approver? Okay, here we also have to decide on who is the approver. and then we have to define the actions. Okay, here actions are going to be at different stages. Okay, submission actions, approval actions, rejection actions, recall actions. Okay, in workflow rule we just added the immediate and time dependent. Here, because the approval process is actually going through several stages, so you have to define action for each stage. What will happen when the record is submitted for approval? What will happen if the record is approved? What will happen if the record is rejected? Right, that's it. So if we define this, our approval process is going to be ready. All right, so that's it. So let's say opportunity with amount greater than 100K needs approval. Okay, let's say any opportunity which has got an amount more than 100,000 requires an approval. Right. So we are going to create this approval process. All right. And in this action, we are going to do field update. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do field update in actions. So in the field updates, what we'll do, we will create a drop down field. We'll create a pick list and we will update that pick list field as per the stages of the approval process. Right. So let me just quickly create the pick list field on opportunity. So I can go to setup, customize opportunities fields. I'm going to create a pick list field here. Okay, so we have created a pick list field. Now what I want to do here is I've got opportunities and in this I've got a pick list approval status. I want to control the value of this through the approval process, right? So if the record is approved, it should automatically get updated to approved. If the record is rejected, it should automatically get updated to rejected and all that stuff, right? So that's what we want to do. This time we are gonna work with this part. Okay. Can you see my screen? Is it moving? I think it was stuck. Maybe. Okay, fine. So just in case you guys missed this part, so what I've done is I've created created a field called approval status, and it has got certain values. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to control the value of this field with the approval process. Right. So if the record is approved, or it should automatically get updated to approved. If the record is rejected, it should automatically be updated to rejected. That's sort of thing. Right. So that's what we are going to do. So now let's understand this approval process and break it into steps. So which object are we talking about? Opportunity. What is the entry criteria? What is the entry criteria? Amount greater than 100,000. Who is the approver? Let's say any user, ABC user. Okay. What actions we want to perform? Update approval status field to pending. right? So here we are trying to do a field update, right? So if the record is approved, then field update, they should get updated to approved. If it's rejected, then it should get updated to rejected. If it is recalled, then it should get updated to recalled. All right. So submission, approval, rejection, recall. 4 things. All right. Okay. Okay. Here. Fine. So now, what is the next thing that we're going to do? The next thing that we'll do here is go ahead and define this in the Salesforce. Now I already know what needs to be done. It's going to be easy for me to go and define this approval process in Salesforce. Just go to setup and type approval process in the quick find box. You can find it. So first thing, you have to choose the object for opportunity find. Okay. Now to define the approval process, you can go to this create new approval process, use jumpstart wizard. Just put a name for it, name, unique name, whatever you want. You have an option of choosing an assignment email template. Assignment email template is basically an email template which will be sent to the approver. An email which will be sent to the user, right? So anytime your approval is starting, there will be an email template, email which will be sent to the approver, right? So you have an option of defining a custom email template for that, or it can automatically use the standard one. Okay, now come to this entry criteria. What is my entry criteria? Amount greater than 100,000. Right. Okay. There's a small thing that we have to understand here. Sometimes, if you do not have an entry criteria, which means if you need an approval for all the records, then you don't have to define this. You can just keep it blank because there's not a mandatory thing, right? So you don't need to specify an entry criteria always. It's not required. But sometimes, in case you feel that all the records need approval, then you don't define anything here. Okay. Anyways, so this part is done. Now choosing the approver. So for choosing approver, there are 3 options that we have. Let the submitter choose the approver manually, automatically assign an approver as per a hierarchy field, and automatically assign to the approver, particular approver. All right, so 3 options are there. So first option will basically allow the submitter to choose the approver. The person who is submitting the record, he will have the option to choose the approver manually. Second option will automatically assign the approval request to the as per the hierarchy field in the user object. Okay, you can automatically assign it to the manager. So whoever submits, it's going to go to the manager of that particular person. Okay. Third option is if all the approval requests are going to a particular user, then you can choose this option. So let's say all these approval requests have to go to this user, then you can choose that user. That's also an option available, right? Okay. So in case you're choosing this third option, and if you have multiple users, if your approval request is going to multiple users, then you will have these 2 options available. Do you need approval from all the users, from all selected approvers, or you just need approval or rejection from the first user? All right. So in case you are sending an approval request to multiple users, what will happen? You will have 2 things. Either you want the record to be approved or rejected based on the first response, or you want the record to be approved or rejected based on the response from everyone. Right. So you can choose whichever you want. For one single user, it doesn't matter. If you have multiple users, then then it will matter. So click on save. Okay. Now, only thing that I have to do next is to define the actions on this. Right. So here, you would see that you have got submission actions, approval actions, rejection actions, recall actions. Right. Go ahead and add action. Field update. Okay. Which field you want to update? Approval status. What is the submission action? Field update. Update approval status field to pending. Right. So update this to pending. The same way you just need to define approval action, rejection action, do a field update, give it any name. The field that you want to update is approval status. Make it approved. Field update. All right. So we have defined action for each stage. Okay. Finally, you just have to go and activate your approval process. Like validation and workflow rule, approval process also need to be activated. Click on activate. Done. Now let me go to opportunities. Create an opportunity more than with an amount more than 100,000. Okay. So I've created this opportunity. Amount is more than 100,000. You have the option of submitting this record for approval. Right, you can submit it for approval from here. It will not get, it will not be submitted for approval automatically. You will have to click on the submit for approval button to submit the record for approval. You also have this button available at the bottom. Okay. So if you look into this, currently my approval status is blank. There is no value into this. Let me submit this record for approval. Let's see if it is working or not. So it should get updated to pending, right? See. Okay. Now let me recall the request. Recall approval request. See. So this approval status field is automatically being controlled by my approval process. So that's a complete automated process now. Okay. Let me submit it again. In this, at the end, you will find that at the bottom of the page you're going to find the approval history, which will have the entire history for that particular record. So it was submitted for approval at this time, and then it was recalled at this time. You want to submit it one more time, you can click on submit. Right. Okay. How is the approver going to approve or reject the records? The approver can approve or reject the records from the email. I mean, he will receive an email with the link. So you can basically look into the link and approve or reject the record. And you will also have the option to view the records pending for approval in the items to approve in the home page. So if you are an approver and you have certain records which need to be approved by you, you will see those in the items to approve. in the home page. So this is where the approver can actually view the record, put some comment, and finally approve or reject whatever. Right. So now you see it was submitted initially, then it was recalled, then it was submitted again at this time, then it was approved. Okay, status corrupted to approved. Correct. So this is how the entire approval process can be automated. Okay, fine. So that's what we are gonna talk in the session today. Now let me know if anyone has got any questions or doubts here. Shilagna, I think you're muted from your end. You have to unmute your microphone from your side. Yeah, Pawan, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I have two questions. One is like yesterday we were talking of hierarchical level grant. So let's say we have put a hierarchical level.
Okay,
So
one thing. One small thing before that. So we will be talking about the questions for that particular session. All right. So any queries that you have from the last session, you try to understand that, and we will have a Q&A session. So I think I have told about this also earlier. So we'll take up this question in the Q&A session. Right? So you have
okay,
question from today's session?
yeah. From today's session, like we define the you are saying that email can be defined, right? So let's say if the opportunity owner email is not defined, so how it will happen?
No, no. Opportunity owner email will be there. No, it's a user. So it cannot create a user without email ID.
Okay.
So it will be there. Okay, Gaur, I'm not able to unmute you. Not sure why. Please type in your question.
Ajit,
Okay.
there was like five in the email address for the
Mhm.
CC section. We can add five email address.
Up to 5 email addresses. Yeah.
Yeah, so this email addresses we need to hard code every time, or I mean, is there any way to dynamically select this email address?
No, these email addresses you will have to hard code. Okay.
So
So
okay,
it is not going to be selected dynamically. So recipient will be automatically selected. I mean, that's where you can say select user, owner, that sort of thing. But these
okay.
email IDs, you can basically, these are external email IDs which you have the ability to hard code.
Okay, yeah, one more question. This in the email template, I mean, is it also like a static test, or can we add any? For example, I want a value to be added to the email text.
No, no, we
Let's
can
say
put
like
dynamic values in that in email
we
template.
can put.
We
Okay,
can put dynamic
oh,
value.
okay.
Yeah, Pawan, you have a question?
Hi, Jeet. I have a question here. So, talking about workflow trigger and developing a criteria for that, can we also assign cases automatically?
Can we assign cases automatically? Yes, we can.
Cases automatically for yeah,
Yeah, we
through
can do
this
that.
criteria, right?
No, no, this is not for assigning
Okay,
cases or something like
perfect.
that. This
Thank
is
you.
only for, okay, when I say assign task, assigning a task is a different thing, assigning a case is a different thing. Assigning a case is basically case record, no? That needs to be assigned to a certain owner. Assigning a task is basically creating a task for a particular user. Let's say you are an opportunity owner. I say that every time there is an opportunity which has an amount more than 50,000, I want to assign a task for the user to call the customer and talk to the customer. So that's basically assigning a task. So here we are talking about assigning a task, right?
Okay, okay, perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So Gaur, I think we are talking about the page from where he will approve the approver is going to see the approval request. Is that what you're talking about? So you can actually approval request can be seen from the home page. So approver can actually view it from his home page. So in the home page, there's a section called items to approve. Under this items to approve, any pending approvals from you will be available in your home page. So you can basically see them. Okay. Apart from that, the person can view it in his email also. Yeah. Yeah. Here actually in this scenario, I'm logged in as this user only. So that's the reason. All right. So that's what we have. So we'll meet tomorrow, and then we'll start talking about reports now. Okay. So we have talked about several things. We have seen the different things here. We have seen how to control the access and permissions, and bulk data operations, business logic. So many things we are familiar with now. The next thing that we will start discussing in the session tomorrow is the reports. All right. Because we have the data in this system, uh, and report is one very important thing that companies basically look into when they start considering CRM. So Salesforce has got good abilities to create reports, and it also allows you to create certain dashboards. So in this session tomorrow, we'll start talking about how to build reports in Salesforce. Right? Okay, then I'll see you all tomorrow same time. Thank you.